Hey man, I just got home. It's been a long day. What's for dinner? I made pork adobo. I hope you enjoy. What's up, everybody? I'm Zach. I'm just a simple chef, and today we're going to learn how to make pork adobo. I'm going to be using a big old pork butt shoulder here, and it's a bone in, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it up into little cubes. We're going to fry it in our Dutch oven, and we're going to get it boiling, and it's going to be so good. I can't wait. All right, so we're going to want to fill our rice up, maybe a cup or so, because you got to start the rice first because it takes the longest. So we want to make sure we wash it thoroughly. And to measure the rice, I use the finger method. The tip of the rice should touch the tip of your finger, and then the water should touch the first line. What's up, everybody? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut up into the pork, make some cubes. Probably going to use about half of the pork shoulder. Save the rest for something else. But this is a super easy recipe. There's not too many ingredients, and you just get it on the stove and get it boiling. Easy. Okay, so we're going to get the pork out of the bag, and we're going to get it rinsed off. A lot of the times they cut the meat with the bandsaw and the bone fragments, and I just like to wash my meat, whatever it is, just because. But just look at that piece of pork. It's beautiful, it's bright. So I got this pork shoulder butt for $11, almost $12. It was on sale, it was like 50% off. I guess they were just getting rid of product, but it's a great piece of meat. It smells good, it looks really good, and it's been in my freezer for about 4 months. So it can be used for pork adobo like we're doing today. It can be used for pulled pork. It's a good piece of meat. It takes a little longer to cook than most, but hey, for $12 you can make several meals out of this. Okay, so now I'm going to feel around the pork butt, look where the bone is, and kind of map out how I'm going to cut this up. So I find an area that doesn't have too much bone, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that piece off. Super easy. And then here I'm feeling again. As you can see, the bone's right there. It's kind of like a blade bone. And there is another piece, and I'm going to square this bad boy up. And so now we got the meat for the pork adobo, and then we got a nice small little shoulder there. And we're going to set that aside. Now we're just going to cut these pieces into cubes. I like to cut them a little bit bigger because they will shrink when we cook them, especially for the amount of time that we cook them. So probably maybe 1-inch cube all the way around, maybe a little bit bigger. So now we're going to get them into a pan or a bowl. We're going to oil them and salt them and get that all worked up and set aside. Alright, so now that we cut up the pork, we're going to go ahead and make the adobo sauce. And while we're making the adobo sauce, I got the cast iron Dutch oven on the stove heating up because we want to make sure that it's really hot. Alright, so we're going to start off with 3 cups of shoyu, or soy sauce, and then we're going to do 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. I like to use apple cider vinegar. I feel like the apple cider vinegar does really well with pork, and it's just overall a good vinegar to use. So here we go. We're going to dump the 2 cups in, and then we're going to add a handful of dried chilies. And of course, we're going to taste it. See how it tastes, if it's too vinegary, too salty, or whatnot. So it needed another cup of shoyu. So overall, we did 4 cups of shoyu to 2 cups of vinegar. Now we're going to just kind of quarter up an onion and get it broken up into little pieces so that they cook better. So you don't have random hard pieces of onions. We're going to smash up some garlic. And that's all we have to do with the garlic. We don't have to mince it or anything. Just smash it to get it kind of working. Super simple, super easy. And now we're going to kind of smash up a couple bay leaves. Get those worked. Put those in the pan. And now we have everything minced out. We got the onions, the pork, the aromatics, and the adobo sauce. Alright, so now that we have everything all ready to go, we're going to go ahead and brown all of the pork. You can skip this, but I like to do it. It's going to take a little bit. You're going to have to do it in batches to get it all, but I think it adds to the flavor and the texture, and I like doing this. But you could totally skip this. You can just put it all in the pot, add everything, bring it to a boil, and let it simmer, but I'll show you how I like to do it. Alright, so we got the smoking hot skillet. We're going to add our oil, and then we're going to drop the pork in. And just listen to that sizzle. You want to make sure you have that sizzle. And we want to make sure that we're browning all the sides as best as we can and not to overcrowd the pot. We don't want to overcrowd the pot or else it's not going to brown. And we're doing this in batches. So we want to make sure that the oil stays hot. We don't want to overload it, pull out all the meat, add more meat because it just won't get brown as fast as we would like it to. And it's just going to be more time consuming. So it's easier just to pull one batch out, wait a few minutes, put the next batch in. Okay, so we browned all the pork. So there's a crust on the bottom of the pan from the pork, and that's fond, and there's a lot of flavor in that, and that's another reason why I brown it. So now we're going to put the onions and the garlic and the bay leaves and the peppercorns in there, and we're going to cook that down, put the pork back in, add our sauce, and just let it boil for several hours, and we're going to get delicious pork adobo. Alright, so there's our pork, browned, looks delicious. Now we have our smoking hot pot with the fond on the bottom. That's where a lot of flavor is. So we're going to add in our onions, get that stirred up, add in our peppercorns, get those toasted. Then we're going to add in our garlic and bay leaves aromatics. Add a little bit more oil, kind of work the bottom of the pan, scrape everything off the bottom as we can. And now we're going to just ladle in our adobo sauce. We're going to start with about a cup into the bottom of the pan to further break up the fond from the pot. Then we're going to add in our pork, and we're going to slowly ladle in more of the adobo sauce on top of all the pork. So you can see I dumped in the pork and all the juices there, and we're just going to slowly add in the adobo sauce. And we're going to finish this with 2 cups of water to cover everything. Okay, so we got everything on the stove. We're going to bring it up to a boil. Then we're going to turn it to a simmer, cover it, and just let it go for several hours, probably 2 or 3 hours. And I put a lot of chili, dried chilies in there because I like my pork adobo spicy. But you could totally negate that from the recipe. You don't need to put that in there. Alright, so now that it's boiling, we're going to turn it down, let it get to a simmer, put the lid on top, and cook it. So this is about 2.5 hours later. I take the lid off and I let it boil for a little bit. Now we're going to plate up. So we got our nice cow roast rice, cooked to perfection. We're going to add in our adobo. And just look at how beautiful that is. It's delicious, tasty. Now we're going to ladle the juices all over, and just a perfect, easy dinner meal for every occasion. Alright everybody, so here you have it. Super simple, super easy pork adobo. It's sweet, it's tangy from the vinegar, it's salty and delicious from the shoyu. The pork is just so tender. And I cooked this thing about 2.5 hours or so. Oh man, it's really good. I hope you enjoyed this. And I post every Friday, so stay tuned next week.